Today I'm joined by Billy Jaz from McGrath Palm Beach. Billy is a partner, sales agent and auctioneer with 13 years experience. What's particularly interesting about today's discussion is Billy and I come from opposite sides of the market. Our goal today is simple: to cut through the headlines, provide some context and hopefully provide some information for buyers and sellers to better understand the market. Billy, thanks for joining me today, mate. Really appreciate it.
Thanks for having me, mate.
Pleasure. I really just want this to be a conversation. I know the intro will cover what we're trying to cover. However, ultimately the market is the market at the moment. It's a different market, but I thought before we start, 13 years in the game, can you give me a little bit or give our audience a little bit of introduction to you and your time in real estate and how it's gone?
Yeah, so started 13 years ago, came from construction, moved up from Melbourne to the Gold Coast, did construction here for a year and then decided I was done with it, and I'd say fell into real estate, but it was actually a suggestion that my father-in-law made. Anyway, got into real estate, gave it 3 months, tried to quit, wasn't working for me. Had an awesome principal, still a mentor of mine. He said, I'm not letting you quit, keep doing what you're doing. So I did. 6 months later, started to find a bit of momentum and naturally built a career in an area, primarily Elanora, Crumb and Waters. Built a career out of that. At year 6, got into business. I'm in partnership at the office. About year 5, started auctioneering as well. I'm one of the few agents who is an agent and an auctioneer. I really love that part. I don't do it for the money. It's actually not worth it for that. But I've always had a thing with public speaking. Love being on the stage. Used to play in a band. And when I'm at an auction, I just feel like it's the butterflies in my stomach that I
love that.
I still get nervous, right? And so this is where I'm at 13 years later. Yeah.
I love that. And when you look at Elanora today, to even pre-COVID to when you started, I mean, the growth has been sensational. It's gone out to Crumb and Waters now as well too. Do you see that luck or good fortune or good education? Like, why that area?
I've never understood why Elanora wasn't called Palm Beach Waters.
I said Palm Beach West or West Palm Beach.
Well, I mean, you got Broadbeach Waters, Correct. Mermaid Waters, Burleigh
Correct.
Waters. And I think if you think of it in that regard, Palm Beach Waters, you can understand why it has grown as much as it has. It's the sister suburb to the beachside suburb right there. Less dynamic than Palm Beach, very family orientated. So it's 80% 3-4 bedroom homes for families, parks, schools, not too much waterfront, barely any units, couple of duplexes, townhouses, whereas Palm Beach is incredibly dynamic. High-end, low-end units, townhouses, villas, duplexes, all of that. So naturally, we've just benefited from a lot of buyers cross-pollinating from Palm Beach to Elanora, or ideally wanting to be beachside and then sort of resorting to Elanora, getting a bigger, better home with more land. And then I've also seen that same sort of crossover with people wanting Elanora, but then moving south, maybe into like Benora, Terranora area. Yeah.
It's really interesting. So we're talking about a market and everyone talks about the market now. You've been in the game, you've seen cycles. In a really short couple of sentences, how are you seeing the cycle now? Where are you seeing the cycle now?
We are in the transitional period.
Transitioning from where to where?
It's softening, it's slowing, has been for 3 months.
Yes.
It started in March.
Yes.
It started with Trump and the war, which coincided with the second interest rate rise, which I think was around mid-March, which then turned into April and the looming May 12 budget. May was all a handbrake period, waiting for the budget. Now we're on the back end of that. We've seen inquiry drop significantly. We've seen open home numbers drop significantly, the number of offers being made significantly. But in saying all of that, we've still transacted a fair amount of properties. So this is going to be interesting what we talk about.
Yeah, 100%. And that's what I just want this to be. I want a conversation from both sides because buyer's agent, selling agent, both sides of the story, right? Yeah. So, and I believe experience allows you to consider both sides of a transaction, and inexperience just you focus on your side and it doesn't get deals done. Yeah. You know, and I think that is sellers and buyers. And I think you've touched on something. You've touched on something a little bit there, talking about Elanora, houses, investment. Like, our market isn't just one market. And the market conditions are now, I think, creating different markets. So if I look at, from my perspective, from a buyer inquiry, people ringing us, our phones are still ringing. People are still wanting help. The fear of missing out is now the fear of overpaying. And do they pay the right price? And should I buy that property? Can I give them the confidence to buy that property with data rather than just going out because they can afford it and buying it? So, and I'm getting a lot of inquiry actually from younger people as well, where it used to be older people, you know, who are wanting that help. So that's a good thing, right? They want the educational process and the system we follow.
They want your experience as well.
They're exactly right. But what I'm seeing is the owner-occupier market is still quite strong. The investment market, our inquiry investment has gone to basically zero, and understandably. So prior to February and prior to May 12, definitely with the negative gearing and the capital gains tax scenario, we always had 3 clients each, up to $1 million. They want to buy the 2-bed, 1 bath, 1 car apartment in Palmy or Mermaid Waters. They pay $900,000. They get $850 a week rent for it. Get a bit of a negative gearing tax break, and the gain in the market, the capital, they just were in there for the capital growth, which they've loved for the last few years because those units used to be 700, they're now 900. Okay, so that was their gain for them, and for the sacrifice, and now that's gone. Yeah. Okay, the cost to them, it's no longer there, and now we're here in Westpac and Commonwealth Bank have now just, even if you had a pre-approval, they're reapproving your loan, and borrowing capacity's gone down. So we've seen that market go. But that also then opens up the door for less competition. Yes, I'm hearing what you're saying about less buyer numbers going through, regular first home buyers or properties, but you've got less buyers in the market. So for the first home buyers and the downsizers in that lower end of the market, they've got more choice.
Yep.
And respectfully, if agents don't move with the market, their property's going to sit on market longer. Our buyers will still buy, but they'll buy the right property at the right price. Okay, so we see that sort of side. We see that lower end slowing. Okay, and a lot more opportunity for us to buy. Okay, in the regular Gold Coast housing market. Okay, for owner occupiers. Interestingly, I read some stats in an article in Courier Mail, 1st of June, prop track. Sydney volumes, properties on market are up, prices are down. Melbourne's basically gone under median price range of 995,000, so under $1 million for the first time. It's gone backwards, so it's basically stagnated back to 4 years ago.
Yep.
Brisbane, South Australia, Hobart, markets are still strong. The Gold Coast, they're tipping, PropTrack are tipping that the Gold Coast will exceed Sydney's median house price in the near future at $1.45 million. So I think we also have to, when we're talking about the Gold Coast market, we are talking about, in Australia, there seems to be a two-speed market. In the Gold Coast now, I think the owner-occupier in the prestige market, the right property with the right seller with the right seller's expectation, and the right buyer with the right mindset, and so it's a psychology now, okay. Transactional prices, you've seen it in your office. I know I just did a piece on Josh's sale at Varsity Lakes. I know what you've done in Elanora recently with a few of your sales as well too. There are good prices being paid for, or great prices being paid for great properties, and I'm sure there are characteristics to those.
Yeah.
What is achieving a good price at the moment?
I tried to put this on a video as well only a couple of days ago. I was talking about premium property, right? Because I feel that, I think we say premium property. As a selling agent, I think to myself, wow, so many people who own a property out there would hear that and go, is mine a premium property? What is a premium property? So I don't think a premium property needs to be on the beach or on the water or, big acreage with views like that one we'd sold in Elanora or a newly built one. I think a premium property is the one that ticks 9 out of the 10 boxes or 8 or 9 out of the 10. And those properties, when they come up and they're priced fairly accurately, they're selling. And they're the ones that might still have more than, 1 or 2 people wanting to buy it. I had a good one in Bali Court in Elanora, appraised it between 1.7 to 1.75. Took 6 weeks to sell, ended up selling it for 1.82. Why premium? Built only 11 years ago, but still not modern. Single level floor plan, but in an elevated position with fairly flat usable yard. That's really rare. Most people that are on the flat, they're like, bit concerned with flooding. So to have that and to have views, so it ticked a lot of the boxes that most other properties of that caliber don't. So I think that's what premium property actually is, if you're ticking 8 or 9 out of 10 boxes.
So you've just touched on 2 things there, and it comes often back to the listing presentation. When you're in a listing presentation, I speak to a lot of agents, and I profile all my agents that I talk to because I need to understand how I can get deals done if need be. You're someone I always, if I want to talk to someone about the market, I'll always give you a call and have a chat. How's the market going, whatever. A listing presentation now, given that there's more properties on market, longer days on market, everyone thinks their property's a premium property. When should an agent have the tough discussion with a seller about where everyone sees value? So you just mentioned you appraised it at 1.7 to 1.75. In every listing presentation, do you give a price appraisal? Yeah.
Yeah, you have to.
Yeah. Do you think every agent does that?
No. I know that quite a few selling agents won't give a direct price or even a sort of a fairly narrow range, and we'll leave it to the market. And it's all about getting the most amount of buyers, the most amount of interest, the most amount of offers, build a competition and extract the best price. I get that. And for any agent that became an agent after COVID, strategy worked. Yeah, it was all basically a bums on seats process. doesn't work anymore.
No, correct.
Yeah, there's a reason why I'm smiling.
Yeah, absolutely.
This is my time.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and that's why I asked the question, because and I think this is attributing to days on market. You see that if people aren't aligned from the start, how do you get the result?
Yeah.
And from my perspective, and I'm not being selfish when I say this, if I don't know, if I haven't got a fair idea of where price may lie, it's very hard for me to be able to get a deal done. Mm-hmm. So how's the punter in the street going to get a deal done if they're walking in with no information?
Yeah.
And Queensland live behind different laws and legalities about talking about price and the likes. However, I just see in today's market, a lot of this days on market could be alleviated if fair conversations were had at listing.
Yeah. So to answer your question on that, the conversation, if you want to sleep well at night as a selling agent, the conversation needs to be had at the listing appointment before they sign the Form 6. I'll give you an example. The other day, I had this conversation the other day. There were two things I mentioned to them. They were sort of thinking we want north of 1.8. I showed them some comparable sales were in the last 3 months. I also acknowledged that some of these sold in February. There has been an adjustment in the majority of the market, not all of it. So to get over 1.8 would mean you'd be getting a better price than a better property in a lesser market. Happy to give it a try, but I just need you to understand that may not happen.
Yeah.
And if it doesn't happen in the first couple of weeks, we need to be quick to pivot our strategy, our pricing strategy, right? Yeah. I had that conversation with them up front. I also saw in their eyes, they were deflated, right? And then when I saw that, I thought to myself, this is my job. The other thing I said to him, letting you know, in 3 weeks, I'm going to be overseas for a week and a half.
Yep.
Another thing, I have to have these conversations up front. 100%. Otherwise, you don't sleep well at night, right?
Absolutely.
So I know with certainty that most agents will wait for, not most, I would say so many agents would wait for a 90-day exclusive, still run with the hype and the hope and the enthusiasm to get listings, and then use the market to condition the sellers. It's been the age-old tradition forever and a day. And I'm very comfortable to have these conversations up front before I get the paperwork signed, because I'm also willing to let them figure out the market on someone else's time. And if it doesn't happen, they may not sell. I might have a chance at it second time round. I'm having many conversations with sellers that are in the middle of a campaign and they're calling me saying, what should I do?
Yeah.
And it's because I had that conversation with them before they listed with another agent.
Yeah.
And now they're calling me to say, this is where we're at. What do you think?
Yeah,
right?
yeah. And how many? So when you're appraising your properties and you're having those conversations, and you get that feeling, well, they didn't really like that, and then they may choose to go with another agent down the track, and then they might ring you through that process. How many of the sellers are actually accepting your appraisal and signing on? Like, would you sign 5 out of 10, 6 out of 10, 10 out of 10? Like, how many people? It's a hard reality, right? It's like sometimes people say, oh, that sold up the road for 1.8, so mine's worth 1.8, but it had an extra bedroom and a pool, so yours might be 1.6.
Yeah.
They're the conversations that need to be had, but everyone's home is their palace, but working through that side.
7 out of 10.
7 out of 10. Yeah, fantastic.
I'm a spreadsheet geek. I actually track that. Once upon a time I had it at 85% conversion rate. I'm now at 70%. And when I look at that, it's probably because I'm being more honest earlier. So I'm not listing based off hype and hope.
Yep.
I'm listing based off honesty and transparency.
Yep.
With a really strong strategy, and I make sure my sellers know you're going to have a very strong agent working for you. I've got a good commercial nous, but I need that to reciprocate from you guys. So when I find a buyer and we've got a bird in the hand scenario, we both need to be in a position where we can get this deal done effectively. And
what about if that buyer comes to you off market? Let's say it's me with my buyer, and you've appraised something at, let's call it 1.7, and in an off market scenario, my buyer sees value in, we show value in that 1.6, 1.625 range. You've had the conversation with your client at I believe we appraised it at 1.7, but you also understand the market. Okay, you also understand the market. How's that conversation sound? Or do you just go to market?
No, I love off market for this reason. It takes so much more skill to get an off market deal done, and you have to have so much more trust with your vendor. So nothing makes me feel like I'm in the right space at the right time, doing the right thing, more than hearing one of my vendors say, what do you think? What should we do? And there are times where I'd say, let's run to market. And there are times when I'd say, we may not get this again. Seriously consider taking the offer. It's fair. Sometimes you'd pitch it based on comparable sales, 1.7, 1.75. You get a pre-market offer at 1.625. You have to diagnose their circumstances. Again, take them back. Why are you selling? Is it death, divorce, illness? Is it because you're just price anchored and you just want X amount of dollars? Well, if that's the case, let's run it to market. It is a roll of the dice. It may or may not happen, but it's their decision, and you're just guiding them to make the decision either way. But I think a lot of that time it comes back to the trust, your understanding of them and where they're at circumstantially. And I think the more you understand the clients, their expectations, because you've had, to them what might feel like an interrogation at the listing appointment, but the more you can understand someone, the better you can advise
100%,
them at any point of the campaign, pre-market, on market, 8, 9, 10 weeks down the track.
Yeah, absolutely. And you mentioned auction before. There are, in today's market, and again, if you're having the upfront conversations, and you like an auction,
love an auction.
I actually like an auction too, and I think auctions in when you've got a unique or a distinct property, where I think everyone believes it could achieve anything. Not meaning anything high, but it could be a range of prices. An auction's probably the best way to go. But how in today's market, where do you see the auction? Like, would you prefer to put a price on the property now, or would you prefer to run an auction?
I'd still prefer to run an auction. So I think the main thing, I think this keeps me in the industry, the way people behave. Selling agents, buyers, sellers, the behavioural changes that I'm obsessed with behavioural change because I find it fascinating. And it's interesting, like when the market starts to cool or soften, how you see some auction agents revert to expressions of interest campaigns, or close sale by X amount of... And to me, that signifies immediately that they have lost confidence in their own abilities or the property. Or they don't understand the vendor's expectations. Because at the end of the day, why wouldn't you want to get an unconditional offer at a fair or above market price within the space of a 30-day campaign? And it is unarguable that the auction is the best suited method to extract that. The context of why you do an auction in this market should be different. So, again, if you're a after COVID agent and you've been running auction campaigns, 2 opens per week. We run 6 opens. We open the door on a Saturday. We invite an external auctioneer in, and we hope that people rock up and so on. Or we encourage everyone to come and bid, even if they're $500,000 off, expectations. That's not going to work anymore.
100%.
Let me give you the context to a lady who didn't buy at an auction, but who almost did. There's that one at 15 Barley Courts, where she came through in day 1, open house number 1, phone, camera out, just loving the property. I was thinking to myself, you are not doing a good job of hiding the fact that you absolutely love it, right? There at the next inspection, asked all the questions, stuck around from before the open to right at the end of the open. Said, I like it, I want to buy it, I need to sell my place. Within a week, she said, I've got bridging finance sorted, so I'm planning to possibly bid at auction. Within the following week, she had her own building and pest inspector out. She then had an electrician come out to look at some things. Like all the behaviours of a genuinely interested buyer. Now, if that wasn't an auction, there is no way that I would have been able to convince her to go from subject to sale, subject to building and pest, subject to electrical, subject to finance, to then make an unconditional offer.
And did she buy it?
No, she waited. This is another thing we're going to talk about. So, rocked up at the auction, fair, and there was one of the trusses, aircon installer who put in the unit, cut one of the trusses to make it fit. Why would you do that? So she goes, I want a structural engineer to come out and have a look at it. I said, great, just letting you know, this might take a week. Another buyer may turn up in that time, but it's fair. If I was you, I'd do the same. Sure enough, another buyer rocks up a week later. And she ended up offering 177. We ended up getting her to 182. But that's an example of, when the context of an auction, it's not about let's try and get 10 bidders there on the day. That's not going to happen in this market. But if you can find that 1 or 2 buyers and gently guide them to the points of unconditional in a 30-day period, that's where it's at.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, absolutely. And talking on that, and we're seeing it, and we're hearing about it, it seems like in the good old days, a contract was a contract. These days, getting a contract settled, it just seems to be a more time sensitive process and so much emotion.
Yeah.
You know, and we say that, I say that to people in what we call our solution sessions when we're signing or talking to people. You know, actually we don't find the hard part finding a property, which they go, well, I can't find it. Well, we don't find that hard. We don't find it hard negotiating a property, but the most stressful part is getting to settlement. From contract signing through your building and pest, through your finance clause, and then getting to settlement, pre-settlement inspection and settlement can be the most stressful. Okay, that's when really it all becomes real. It all becomes real. Buyer remorse sets in. Have I paid too much? All that sort of stuff. You know, all that comes in, and that's what we're just seeing collapsing contracts at the moment. Whether it's on time or not in time, either. You know, just unconditional contracts causing grief now too. You know, it's interesting, right?
Can I add on that? I want to talk about my own behaviour, because I study my own behaviour more than anyone.
Sure.
But recently, when I look at the process of under contract to unconditional, my level of involvement with the buyer has gone through the roof.
Yeah.
In January and February and prior, the moment a property was under contract, my team will sort that. You know, that's fine. It's going to go through.
Yes.
1 in 10 may not go through.
Yep.
But even now, 3 in 10 may not go through.
Yeah.
And this is, you know, when I smiled before about this market, is that this market is reminding me of how good of an agent I am, because it brings out the better version, the more diligent version, the more forensic agent, the agent that advises up front as opposed to later. And I go home every day and, you know, I'll give you another story. I'm segueing here. It was a really good story. Buyer called me. I actually called his wife. I said, how you been? I haven't spoken to you in like 8 years. She goes, we're not selling. We're loving it here, blah, blah, blah. 2 days later, he emails me saying, I want an appraisal. And I'm like, mate, I just spoke to your wife. You're not going anywhere. He goes, we are. We found the perfect place. Now, his family's circumstance is what it was. They found a perfect property off market. And he says, this is perfect for me and my family in our situation. They want 2.3. And he goes, if we can get 2.2 for ours, we've got that property, we've got this, let's go. We want you to list it, we want you to do it, come around and see us. So I went around and saw him, we're looking at his property, and he spent more time telling me about the next property that he was buying and how it's so perfect for them than trying to upsell his own property, which most sellers do, right? And about halfway through the tour, I thought to myself, I've got a decision to make today, and that is tell him what he wants to hear or tell him what he needs to hear.
Yeah, correct.
And if I tell him what he needs to hear, he's going to be absolutely devastated, right? So I did the tour, stand back, and I looked at him and I said, mate, I'm going to be really honest with you, it's not 2.2. I think at best, with the work done on it, you're probably going to be like 1.8, 1.9. And I killed his dream, right? I killed his dream. And what was so interesting about this is that he goes, I really needed to hear that. I said, why? He goes, mate, I knew I loved that property, but I also knew how much stress it was going to cause for me and my family. And he goes, I wasn't going to tell you, but I'll tell you. He goes, I've got 2 other agents coming after you leave. He goes, I'm going to tell them not to come. I said, well, why don't you just run the exercise? It'll be quite interesting. He goes, no. He goes, I saw it in your eyes. He goes, you told me, mate, it's not happening. That's all I need to know. Thank you.
That's great.
I walked out of there and I was like, I'm going to sleep good. That's me. That's where I'm at. That's where it should be at for everyone. But I could have walked out of there with his listing, wasted 90 days of his life, his family's life, the other seller's life for a non-result.
You haven't heard my intro, and it's funny, you listen, and people go, I'm a good agent. Oh, how arrogant. That's not at all. I actually put in my intro a couple of adjectives about you. Analytical, disciplined, empathetic. And they're the 3 things, they're 3 of the major, pre-COVID agents probably have it, post-COVID agents, probably it's been quite transactional, so they haven't required it as much. And I believe, again, too, that's why I'm successful, is because it's not for me about the dollar, it's about the result. It's about finding and get like a dream. It's about satisfying another dream, providing another dream for a family. And I get a great thrill out of that. That gets me gets me going. So I think that then goes to probably the overarching side of everything, right? Real estate has made a lot of people wealthy. Okay, I remember when I was a kid, we moved house about 8 times, and I asked Dad about it, and Dad was really astute with property, and he said to me, mate, you can't be lazy. Our own home is how you make money. The capital gain you have to pay tax on. And Dad hated paying tax, right? He just said it wasted going to Canberra. He hated it. So he said, you make your money, buy a great location, improve it, sell it, take your gain, go backwards a bit of step again, and go and do it again, and just keep accumulating. I think we've gone back there. I mean, with all the new tax laws, I think now I'm going to say to the younger generation or to people who are wanting to make money out of real estate, for the moment, it's in your own home.
Yep.
Buy shares in Bunnings.
Yep.
Because I'm seeing turnkey. You mentioned before about the property you got the great price on. I'm seeing turnkey puts a property into that high performance market straight away. If someone can see it, feel it, dream it, know they can get their time poor, they can go straight into it and live there tomorrow, they'll buy it like that. If they've got to repaint it, if they've got to rip all the carpets out, do the bathrooms and kitchens, it becomes more onerous and prices seem to stay down.
Yep.
So to me, and I'd love to discuss this with you, if I wanted a strategy of how to make money out of real estate, which is what everyone wants to do, it's the way we make extra wealth, right? In my mind, don't be lazy. Get your property looking great. Get a great price, sell it, go back a step and do it again. So it's going to take that renovation model go forward again, but I think it will strengthen housing, keep strengthening that owner-occupier housing market. So it'll become even more of a two-speed market.
Yep.
That's what I really feel moving forward is the great opportunity, and what I'm speaking to the clients that ring and talk to us about, and they're all on board with it because you have to work with what you've got.
I couldn't agree more. I reckon that's already happening.
Yeah.
You know, I'm a good example of that. Bought an investment property last year. If we couldn't negatively gear it, I definitely wouldn't have bought it.
Yes.
So we're like, okay, we should probably look into another one this year. And I'm like, there's never been a better time to buy, right? Like now is, but a part of me is like, maybe I can just put that money in my own principal place of residence where the tax-free dollars are. And I think a lot of people are looking in that direction.
Yeah, and I'm already here. I'm starting to hear the narrative, but to people who are listening and haven't heard the narrative, you know, everyone, I think Tom Pannell said it yesterday on one of his things that he put up. You know, no one wakes up in the morning thinking about negative gearing, or they never don't think it. They think about, I want to buy that property. There's still the lifestyle investor out there. If they can buy a property on the Gold Coast close to the beach that they can use for 3 months of the year and rent for 9 months of the year, they're still in the marketplace because there's that emotional attachment and it's got a second use for them. But if it's just a pure financial tool, it's a different investment right now. So there's a bigger equity drop, you know, to put into the property. So you know, I just really see, right now, I think it's actually only going to strengthen our housing market. You know. You've got a property management division. What are you going to see again too? Investors that are pre-May 12, so they don't have an incentive to sell as much as the government might think. They don't have an incentive to sell. It's like, let's hang on here for a while. Are you going to see rentals go up?
Yes and no. I think it'll be dependent on the price range. I think we're about to see some investor congestion towards the back end of this year, start of next year, for those that do want to release and capitalise on the 50% adjustment. Although I believe it's prorated after July 2027. I think there'll be a lot of investors that just want a clean cut before that happens. But I do also believe that that's probably going to be primarily in that 1.5 below in this market.
Yeah.
So I think those rents will likely stay the same because there might be more that are released to market. But in saying that, if those landlords do release them, who's going to buy them?
You still have to find people to buy them. Yeah, well, and that's what the government's wanting, okay?
Yeah.
So but again, too, in my mind, they have to still be the right profile of property at the right price for them to sell.
Yeah.
And I think investors have gone big in on that $1 million property on the Gold. We're focusing on the Gold Coast.
Yeah.
They've gone big in that $1 million property where they've paid $900, they got $850 a week rent, and they're handling it. You know, if they then take it to market at $850 expecting to get $1,100, it's not going to sell.
No.
To get 1.1, sorry, it's not going to sell.
Yeah.
And they want that capital growth factor in the process as well.
Yeah.
So it's not going to sell on that rental yield. So I think that's where there's this imbalance now for that investor that's bought the property pre-May 12. And that investment strategy is going to be a little bit harder to clear the property. We're already seeing it.
Yeah.
You know, we're already seeing it. So, you know, and we're seeing a bit of that stock that would usually sell prior to market, sitting on market now, and we're getting phone calls, hey, do you want to put an offer in? So,
do you know Border Drive North, Crumman Waters?
Yes.
That pocket, we had a little bit of a run. We didn't really focus on that area, but we just sort of had a run in that pocket. That pocket of Crumman Waters and those townhouses has actually been a direct visual for me in the way the market has behaved, right? So the record price was like $960 in August last year. Then the first home buyer initiative 5% deposit scheme came out, And literally within a couple of months, those townhouses went up to like 1.1. We had a vendor saying to us, I want to get 1.2. And we were like, mate, like the highest then was $1,060,000. We ended up getting 1.182. Wild. And then they started to break the 1.2 mark. In the last month, there's been 3 or 4 of them that have sold. We sold one for 1.16, thinking we were going to get 1.2 based on everything else that had sold. There's been another one which sold for like $1,050,000. And you can see how they've adjusted. I sold another one, had a buyer, I was working on it for ages and put it to market, tried to find another buyer. It ended up being my first one and only buyer that ended up buying it for 1.2. Same
well,
buyer.
I saw a 4-bedder on the front there in Border Drive North up towards where they're building the new ones.
Yep.
And I know the new ones are selling the 1.34 range that they're currently building, and they wanted 1.35 for it. And I had a buyer from Dubai, and we ended up buying in Tugun for them in Inland Drive because I just couldn't understand the price increases they were getting in that little pocket you're talking about. Yep. So I went over to Inland Drive and bought a great, beautiful 3-bedder, double level, nice spaces for 1.22. You know, so it just, to me, it was just better value close to the beach, all that sort of stuff. But I exactly know the pocket, and it's and whether it's that or whether it's Mermaid Beach by the beach, you know, some of those 2-bedroom apartments getting into the 1s, 1.2s, 1.25s, massive prices, right?
Yeah.
Massive
If you want to know
prices.
what the market's done, search Border Drive Currumbin Waters in the last 12 months, and you'll just see you'll see exactly that there.
Okay, so this here, though, again, you've got to look at where it started to where it got. This little bit here you're talking about, you know, is still way above where we were.
Correct.
Right, you know, and so time in the market's a really important thing, right?
Yeah.
And so if I left you right now to say thank you for your time, I really appreciate it, but I'd like to leave you with this one last question. We put a crystal ball in your hand, and you look in 5 years' time and you look back, because we've spoken a lot about psychology today, the seller psychology, the buyer. We haven't really got into the buyer psychology too much, but you know, to get deals done at the moment, you're dealing with a lot of emotion, you're dealing with hope, you're dealing with, you're just dealing with so much human emotion, okay, because we are talking about property and people's homes. And the market is what it is at the moment. But if you look back in 5 years and said this little time in the market, whether it's from February, from the war through to when all this settles down with the negative gearing and the likes, what did buyers and sellers misunderstand, and where will the market be? What should they have done? No, because it goes back to COVID too, right? When COVID hit 18, 19, everyone sold out, and the people who bought have done exceptionally well. Warren Buffett, greatest investor in the universe, right, says when everyone else is selling, you should be buying. It takes courage. There's another emotion. It takes courage. It takes bravery. I like to think it also takes data, and it takes brains. Educated. You make educated decisions. Okay, and that's why people engage us. Yeah. But ultimately, if you look back in 5 years, what do you think they'll think of this time?
Did a video on this as well.
Oh, good. There
you
you
should
go.
watch my videos.
Yeah,
Story time, right?
Yeah.
To answer your question, I remember my first COVID sale. And she was taking the buyer, she was taking her money out of super and shares, and she was buying 3 properties. I hadn't listed or sold anything for 6 weeks. She bought on Tahiti Ave in Palm Beach, backing onto the lake.
Wow.
Paid $880.
Wow.
Like, should have been worth maybe $950.
There's an off-market coming corner block. They're one of the 4s.
Okay. There you go. So I said to the seller, it was like an unconditional offer, $880. She's like, that's pretty good. And me and my sellers were like, she's lost it, but let's do the deal. And so we did. She bought 3 of them. The same property, unimproved value, is worth north of $2 million.
Bless her.
Right? Now, when I look at her behaviour, when I look back 6 years ago and I look at that buyer's behaviour, I think to myself, she had a confidence in her, and she was active in a market where everyone else was resistant, hesitant, and inactive. And I think if you go back 20, 30 years and you look at all the price correction sort of changes, those that were active when everyone else was, let's wait and see, they won. They won.
Correct.
Right? So this is a question for you now. Is that okay?
Yeah, go ahead.
Thanks. Right now, like, it's not a bad market,
No.
right? But right now for a buyer, and I'm very curious to know what your buyers say to you about this, but like, this is the time they have been waiting for.
100%.
This is the time. Do you know what I hear from most of them? We're going to wait and see what happens. Like, how ironic is that? Like you, if there was ever a time you wanted to buy in isolation, you said people they have the fear of overpaying. I don't actually think that's a thing. If there was ever a time you were certain that you weren't overpaying, it's now.
Look, that's a really good question, but I think it comes back also to even when we're in the fast market. Okay, we have, before we sign a client on, there's obviously conversations like you do your appraisals, and we can talk to people 1, 2, 3 times. I have been really focused in my 5 years doing what I'm doing now of taking on. I try and assess good people, and good people who will listen. They've come to you for a reason. They're talking to you for a reason. Either they know they can't get it done, they haven't got time to get it done, or they've tried and it hasn't worked. Okay, it doesn't matter where the market's at, and they just want the advice. And there's so much to know. Yeah, there is so much to know in the buying process, and we're good at what we do. But ultimately, I've really focused on trying to take. You've met a lot of my clients, taking good people on, because you can work with good people, you can talk to good people, and you can give them the confidence to buy. You've then got other situations where you know that you're not going to be able to help them for whatever, whether it's a personality reason, for whatever. Yeah. I just try not to. It's easy to overprice your quote there, and I don't really want to work there. So in my mind, if you're working with good people who will take your advice on board, there's always business to be done. And I think we established right at the start, the Gold Coast market, we'll just reiterate, our median house price is about to overtake Sydney. We are in this bubble. We haven't really discussed, what's got us here: infrastructure, Olympic Games, lifestyle, all the new transport companies. Like, the place hasn't changed. Everyone wants to be on the Gold Coast. COVID was the best thing. It was the best advertising.
I was thinking about this as driving here because it was in your brief, right? And I thought, I think the reason why Gold Coast has always held its own and will continue to do so. I understand there's got the Olympics. I understand there's the infrastructure and the development that's happening, and there's not much land. You can't build any more land. Then, you've got the lifestyle and all that. But the one thing that all those things changed. Like, development's changed.
Yeah, sure.
Infrastructure's changed. Sure. There's so much more work here than there used to be. COVID changed all of that with remote working and people having businesses all over the world from the Gold Coast. The one thing that's always been there and will always continue to be here? It's the weather.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah.
Let me tell you, I came from Melbourne, and I remember I used to be a chippy, a builder. Rock up on site, 5 o'clock, floodlights on, raining, set up tools. My ladders got ice on the ladder, and it's hard. Yep. But I never hated that, right? And then when we moved to the Gold Coast, and my mindset then was, weather doesn't affect how I feel until I moved to the Gold 100%, Coast.
Absolutely.
And I and my wife, we became more outdoors. Like, we treated ourselves. We rented an apartment on Hedges Ave. Wake up, the sun's blaring in at 5 a.m. Everyone's jogging in the morning. Yeah. The Gold Coast sucked us out into nature. Yeah. And it was maybe 6 months later, and another behaviour that I'll tell you about soon, but it was about 6 months later I thought to myself, no, this weather actually does make me feel better. And then I thought to myself, there will be times where I'll be standing there, and it'll either be a local or a family or a friend or whatever, and it'll just be a good day. And it could be from someone that's been living here their whole life, and they go, how good is this?
Yeah, 100%.
And I was like, no one ever said that to me in Melbourne.
100%.
No one ever looks up at the sky or the beach and all that. And the weather's never going to change. And it's because we are where we are in Australia on the East Coast, position here, Byron to Noosa, it's all that similar pocket. It's always going to have the good weather, 100%. Which then triggers the lifestyle. Think about everyone that came in the childhood to the Gold Coast. Why did you come? You didn't come for Dream World. You didn't come for Surfers Paradise. You came because Surfers Paradise had kick-ass weather, and Dream World did. Yeah. And then the beaches were swimmable and surfable. Yeah. And you can actually surf in these beaches. You're not going to get eaten by a shark, and they're not minus 10 degrees. Sorry, probably I'll say you won't get eaten by a crocodile. Right? But I think largely it's the weather that then breeds the lifestyle, that then breeds the migration, that then populates the infrastructure and the development, and everything else flows on from that. And that's never going to change.
I think I would always put weather into me, red hair, freckles, skin cancers. You know, and I say to him, I've been to the beach once in 3 years since I've lived here, and Lee says to me, why do you not? I said, water, sand, sun. She says, you play golf, you idiot. And I said, yeah, I know, but it's different, right? But I can't believe I've moved from Brisbane to the Gold Coast. I used to sell ladies' clothing all around Australia, and I know exactly what you're saying. The psyche of dealing with someone in Victoria I used to call it grey. Because I used to wake up in grey and they were just melancholy. Whereas you dealt with Queenslanders and you drive to Brisbane to Cairns selling frocks, and it was fantastic fun, right? But when I moved to the coast, I agree with you 100%. I can't believe how quickly I've acclimatised to living on the coast. I also think it's the people.
Yeah.
You're meeting people on holidays. You're meeting people who are looking at water every day. They're going for a walk every day. They've just got this energy. And I think when you're on the Gold Coast, you engage in energy as well too, right? And I think the people add to it. And I'm not just trying to create a list here to make it sound fantastic, but it's an attraction area. It's an attraction area. And I think that really... I think the context of what I was trying to probably even start by having this chat with you today and not doing it in a couple of little me standing in front of the beach saying, come here to the Gold Coast, it's fantastic, is I think we have to be careful and psychologically that we don't just align with the whole market of Australia. Every market, for exactly what you're saying, this Southeast Queensland market has got stuff holding it up. Our foundations are strong. Whether you're going to invest in owner rock, whether you're going to invest in investment or whatever you're going to do, the real estate market here is a lot more stable than everywhere else. We've grown we went after Sydney and Melbourne, but we're continuing. And this little bit here is still well above here. So, I think that there should be a confidence still, and I agree with you. Buyers have never had it better than... It doesn't mean rushing out and paying any price. Do your homework, do what you need. When they're dealing with agents like yourselves who are open, transparent, honest, it's okay. It's good. Be confident to buy. Listen to what they're saying and be confident to buy. Trust the information and make sound decisions, okay? But also do your homework on the price. Really, really important. Billy, you are a legend. Thank you for your time today, mate. That's exactly what I want. Just a little bit of a chat. We'll get it out there, and people may listen to us. They might turn us off, but it's been an absolute pleasure.
Been good.
Thank you, mate. Cheers. Thank you. What a pleasure it was to have Billy here today. I think it's always a fairer conversation when you hear both sides of the story. We had the chance to discuss some pertinent points about today's market, which is really what we set out to do. The key takeaways, I thought, it's a great time to buy. Billy showed many reasons why that was the case, and we referred to Warren Buffett, and when the market's selling, you should be buying. I think also too, the psychology in the market at the moment, there's a lot of emotion. There are a lot of ways people are thinking, and it's important that the emotion is removed, the facts are considered, and the deals are done. But the third major outtake, I believe, it might now be through the vehicle of your own home. Billy touched on make it more turnkey, put some money into your own home, and then sell it, and take your capital gain tax-free, and then do it again. That could be the vehicle required moving forward, and it's something that we're suggesting to our buyers as well. And the other thing is the Gold Coast seems to be a lovely bubble in the Australian property market at the moment. All the foundations are strong, we discussed them, but what I loved is it's just a great place to live. The weather is great, the people are great, the lifestyle is great. Thanks for listening today. If you'd like to have a further chat, click on the link below. It will take you straight to my calendar. Feel free to book in a 15-minute session, and I look forward to talking with you. Thanks again.